Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel and to another video for Not Too Shabby. And we're working again with the Winter Sentiments and Winter Friends mini release, and we're gonna do some coloring right now. I will see you after the music. So as you can see, I have most of the images already colored, but it's been a while since I've integrated music and coloring into the videos, so I thought that would be a nice treat. So now I just made a little slit around his tiny little mittened hand and stuck the cup of cocoa in there, but it's not glued in yet. Now we're going to take this piece of leftover plaid paper. I believe it came from a kit a couple years ago. I keep all that extra paper, and it had the perfect color scheme. And I'm going to use 3 different sentiments. I thought I was going to repeat one of them. That's why there's only 2 on there, and then decided to go with a 3rd different sentiment. So I'm going to add that here, and I'm using the Simon Says Stamp Ultrafine Gold Embossing Powder to decorate this plaid panel. And after we get those heat set, we're going to go ahead and we're going to take the cocoa mug and the heart, the solid heart, and we're going to decorate the empty space of the plaid panel. And we're going to add more gold embossing powder. And you can see I put my powder bag on there a couple times just to make sure. You really don't want stray pieces of gold ruining your panel, because it will. It's not like white or black where sometimes you can scratch it off. That gold usually stays where it melts. So I'm going to put some double-sided adhesive on the back of that, and I'm going to add it to this leftover piece of 100-pound cardstock from a Simon Says Stamp kit. I cannot remember the color of this. I know I used it in a recent video for a sentiment strip, but I can't remember the color. But I know it fits with my color scheme, so we're going to go with it. And now I'm going to glue that cup of cocoa into the little bunny's hand, and then he's going to get glued to the bottom right-hand corner. And we're not going to do a sentiment because we have 3 on there. So I'm just going to add some glossy accents to the brim and the pom-pom of his hat and the top of the cocoa mug where the marshmallows are. I did not add it to his tail because I used the white Jelly Roll glaze pen. So now I'm going to do some ink smooshing, but I'm going to use a piece of acetate rather than using my silicone mat. So I put on some regular Distress ink Salty Ocean and then dried that. Now I'm adding some regular Distress ink Speckled Egg to the leftover Salty Ocean, so I had a little bit of a color dimension. And after I dry that, I'm going to add some Imagine Crafts Frost Shimmer Spray. And after that's nice and dry, we're going to heat emboss on that. But I also want to say that's Tim Holtz Distress Watercolor cardstock that I used for that technique. So now I have Winter Wishes, and I used white tonic pearlescent cardstock for the top, and then 2 layers of 110-pound cardstock underneath that to give it dimension. I also, the Winter Wishes, those are 2 dies from Heffy Doodle. So now I'm taking the snowflakes that came in the sentiment set, and I'm heating up some white and silver snowflakes just to make it look a little more wintry. The color, I think, reminds me of winter, and then to add the snowflakes just really gives it a little bit of embellishment. So we're going to add our double-sided adhesive to the back of this whole panel so we can put it onto our black card base. And that's a 100-pound card base. And now we're going to glue our winter wishes on at an angle. You know me, nothing nice and straight if it requires a lot of fussing with. Sometimes I'll do it, but most of the time it's just not worth it for me. You can always make it look fun without putting a lot of fussing into it. I don't know how else to put it. And I added some glossy accents to that bunny as well. And now we're going to make a spinner card. It's been a long time since I've made a spinner card. So this little fox needed a back side. So I stamped him out again, fussy cut him out, and then flipped him over so I could use my Micron pen. I believe this one's the number 5. And I'm just putting the lines for the edge of the hat, the pom-pom, where the hat meets the ears, and where the scarf is on the neck, so that you can tell that it's the back of him. And then I use the same colors on the back that I used for the front. Good thing I remembered the colors, huh? Now I'm taking an oval Hero Arts Infinity die. I believe I used the 3rd one in. You can make it any size you want. It just has to be big enough for the fox to fit inside and spin around. I had a lot of trouble with this. My purple tape left sticky marks all over my pattern paper, all over my card base on the inside. So I had to cut an extra panel of the pattern paper. So once again, I was wasting paper from that newest MFT paper pad, which really irritates me that it got wasted again. So I cut a new one of those, and I used Post-it tape instead of purple tape. And then I cut another piece out of white cardstock for to cover the inside stickiness on the inside cover of the card. And then I cut another one to go underneath the pattern paper to give it some sturdiness, because the line for the spinner card is going to be between that pattern paper and the card base. So it's got to have some sturdiness to it, because otherwise it's going to rip right through that pattern paper. I'm running a little behind here, but I took the oval that we cut out of the center, and we're going to put that on the inside of the card base. So I ink blended that with some Fiesta Blue for the sky. I cut out some hills with the stitched hillside borders from Lawn Fawn, but I only end up using one. And I showed you 2 choices that I have that I could use as snow on the hill, but I chose the Hero Arts White Puff embossing powder rather than the snowflake tinsel, because I didn't want any major sparkle on this card. So after I traced where my hill is going to go, we're going to use those trees, and we're going to stamp them out along where our hill is going to be. And I did a whole bunch of them here, and I believe I used the Deck the Halls Catherine Pooler ink to ink those out. Then we're going to glue our hillside into place. And as you can, I traced the bottom of the oval, so I knew exactly where it was going to go. So while that dries, I'm using fishing line. Let me tell you, don't use fishing line. It worked, but I don't like the way it looks when it's not spinning. The fishing line ended up stretching after being spun twice, twisted and spun twice. So I would say use white thread. I mean, I didn't want it to be seen, but it is a spinner card, so it doesn't really matter. If you can find clear thread, use clear thread. I don't know if there is such a thing. I know there's white thread or clear thread for quilting, but it's not really thread. It's more like fishing line. So I'm just placing the fishing line. I'm using 2 pieces between the 2 pieces of the front and the back of the fox, and gluing that in place. And I have my heavy iron on that, and to make sure those pieces stay together while it dries. And in the meantime, I'm tracing out with very light lines where I want my oval to be on the inside of the card to make sure it matches up with the frame, and glued that into place. And I cut out a small frame out of Merlot cardstock from Heffy Doodle. And before I put that on there, I used my R89 Copic marker, colored around the inside edge of the oval in case any white spots showed. That way it wouldn't look like the frame was all cockeyed. I'm going to use some double-sided adhesive to keep my string in place while we put the front on. You want it taut, but you don't want it super tight because you don't want it to rip. So I just made sure it was taut, and then I bent, rather than snip my strings off, I bent them in towards the double-sided adhesive so it would have some added strength to stay in place, and put some more adhesive over them, and then I glued my front panel on over everything. And that completes the spinner card. So we're going to twist this up and see what it looks like, and then we're going to put a sentiment on really quick. So rather than put one on the front and put one on the inside, I just put the sentiment where you could see it from the inside and the outside. So we're going to use Happy Holidays, and I just stamped that out with some VersaFine Nocturne ink. VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink. I always say that wrong. And that's it for this week's video, guys. Make sure you hit like and subscribe, and don't forget to hit that notification bell to be apprised of giveaways. There's usually one every month, unless it's the holidays. I'm going to refrain from handing anything out during the Christmas season. And don't forget to check out Jamie's shop to see everything she has for the holidays. Use the coupon code down below. See you next time, guys.